Now, I'm going to come out this way. I don't want anyone to be alarmed by what you hear coming out of the mic. I've been struggling with laryngitis since for the last couple of days, and it sometimes gives the impression that the person that you're seeing on the stage is about to expire. But I actually feel much better than that. And I don't intend to expire until April the 13th, 2013. But thanks to the wonderful sound system that we have, I will not have to shout. This is something which brings great relief to my wife as well. I don't want to give anyone the impression that we spend a lot of time shouting at each other. I'll leave those rumors to others to spread. But I did want to, perhaps one of the good things about having a voice in this condition is that it allows me to talk more quietly and to engage all of you in more of a conversation. Because I actually think that what the country is missing is a conversation. I think we've had a politics recently where the government has told us what to do, how to do it, what to think, and how to think it. Where instead of a normal conversation, any one of you who has the misfortune of turning on television at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and watching Question Period will know that it's a very extraordinary kind of experience. I must confess that, as many of you will know, I've had a rather, long career. I've been a rising star in 5 decades. It's not over yet. And when I came back into the House of Commons in 2008, I found that the place had changed. Now, I've been at the political coalface in a variety of ways and forms. I've been a member of Parliament from Toronto, became the finance critic for the New Democratic Party, became the leader of the third party in the Ontario legislature, became the leader of the official opposition, became the premier, became the leader of the third party again, then decided that I would try my hand at other things for a decade, and then came back into politics as a liberal candidate for the leadership, then came back as the foreign affairs critic, then tried to run for leader again and decided not to do that again, and then ultimately became the interim leader of the third party. So, as Mae West would have said, I've been around. Although I suspect my encounters have been somewhat less exciting than Mae West, or indeed those the people with whom she encountered. But what is striking about the difference between the House of Commons today and the House of Commons in 1978 is that in 1978, if you asked a question, you would get something like an answer. If you asked a question about interest rates, you would get an answer about interest rates. If you asked a question about unemployment, you'd get an answer about unemployment. If you asked a question about Canada's role in the United Nations, you'd get an answer about Canada's role in the United Nations. If you asked a question about the wheat board, you'd get an answer about the wheat board. And it was reflective of a time in politics when that was the standard case. It didn't mean there weren't colorful exchanges or that there weren't vibrant differences of opinion. When I was first elected in the House, Mr. Diefenbaker was still a member of Parliament. Tommy Douglas was still a member of Parliament. Stanley Knowles was still a member of Parliament. Pierre Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada. And it wasn't to say that Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Diefenbaker didn't have exchanges. They did in the House of Commons. It didn't mean that there weren't vibrant and lively differences of opinion. But today we're in a very different kind of political situation. We're at a time when politics has become manufactured. It's become synthetic. It's become fake. It's become artificial in ways that prevent conversation. So that if I were to ask the Prime Minister a question on almost any subject, his answer would be, "You're no damn good." It would frequently turn to what you learned when you learned debating skills in high school, would be called the ad hominem argument. In other words, the argument quickly turns from being an argument about Canada and the world, or why didn't you go to speak to the United Nations, or whatever it might be, to being an argument that says, "And you're this." And if you watch question period for 10 minutes, I guarantee you that's what you will find. And the ministers are all trained in the same school, and they're all trained. Don't think this is all by accident. They're all trained. They get their messaging straight from the Prime Minister's office. It's all synthetic, it's manufactured, it's presented to them. And it's all based on attack, attack, attack. So there's no conversation. Imagine a family sitting around the dinner table and saying, "Dad, what did you do today?" And he turns to you and says, "You're no bloody good. You wasted your day in school today. I know all about you. You're worthless." I mean, it's not a conversation, not a dialogue. It's not a way of engaging Canadians. And I think the greatest challenge for us, and people now, as a result of all this, people are hugely cynical about politics. They're enormously frustrated by politics because they see in the political process, they don't see themselves in it. I have constituents who come up to me and they say, how do you stand it? Like, why are you still doing that? Why don't you do something that's, more pleasant? Why don't you? And you say, because I believe in this. Because I actually believe that, as Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst possible system of government with the exception of all the others. And that's what we have. We have a system that is better than all the others. But we have to rebuild it almost from the ground up. And we as liberals are the ones who are going to do it. We're going to have to do it. And we're going to have to do it by rejecting the politics of the two extremes. The two other parties have convinced themselves, I think sort of, not entirely, but I think they're trying to convince themselves, and they're trying to convince the media and the public that Canada has changed. And that now we're left to having to choose between the Conservatives and the NDP. And the Liberals are irrelevant. You don't count. You're terrible. You're no good. You don't count. And I believe that the vast majority of Canadians are actually closer to the Liberal Party than they are to any other party. Because I don't think the vast majority of people are looking for ideological answers to questions. I don't think they're looking for simplistic answers to questions. I think most Canadians want to live in a country where their government is worried about their prosperity. I think most Canadians want to live in a country where their government is concerned about what happens to them when they get sick, or when they get older, or when they're frail, or when they're feeling left out, or when they're on the margin. I think most Canadians want a government that's worried about the long-term sustainability of our economy and of our environment and of our way of life. I think I think most Canadians are concerned about a government and want a government that is democratic in its fingernails, is democratic in its instincts, is prepared to use all the technology that we have today, not to close down government, not to make it more secret, but to make it more open. We have the capacity to make government so much more open and interactive and involving and engaging with Canadians